Hello and welcome to Beyond the Dollar. I'm Andy Hodges and this is SADC Prime broadcasting to you from our studios in Harare, Zimbabwe. Now in August there's an incredible event that's descending on our capital, Harare. Of course I'm talking about the 44th Ordinary SADC Heads of State Summit. Now all systems are go in terms of us hosting that summit. 16 heads of states from all the SADC nations will descend on Zimbabwe or into Zimbabwe on the 17th and 18th of August 2024. And the summit is being held under the theme Promoting Innovation to Unlock Opportunities for Sustained Economic Growth and Development towards an industrialized SADC. The Zimbabwean government has taken up the mandate and responsibility to spruce up Harare's infrastructure. I'm sure you've noticed roads in and around the capital are being given a new look and resurfaced. The refurbishment of a hotel is already underway, and 12 villas, which will house the heads of state, are nearly complete, and those will be converted into a hotel after the summit. But more importantly is the 7th SADC Industrialization Week, which will run from the 28th of July to the 2nd of August at the Harare International Conference Center. And that Industrialization Week will be under the theme Promoting Innovation to Unlock Opportunities, as I said, for sustainable economic growth and development towards an industrialized SADC. Now, the precursor to the Heads of State Summit is expected to be a launch pad to growth for Zimbabwean industry, offering a prime platform for companies to connect with industry peers, explore mutually beneficial partnerships, and tap into the vast SADC market. We're here talking about regional integration, regional industrialization. The Industrialization Week, as I said, which starts in August, it started in August 2016, has been noted as an instrumental force in promoting regional economic growth, cooperation, change, intensifying engagement and development partnerships with development partners and other third parties to promote the SADC industrialization agenda and strategy at both the national and regional levels. So, how will the Industrialization Week aid Zimbabwean industry? Will it benefit Zimbabwe? What exactly is industrialization in the SADC concept and how will it be implemented? How will each individual country's own industrialization needs be catered for in any SADC holistic industrialization document? So, SADC Industrialization Week, what's in it for Zimbabwe? That's our topic today on Beyond the Dollar. Join me and my guests live on Beyond the Dollar. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching Beyond the Dollar. I'm Andy Hodges, and this is SADC Prime. Now, our topic today, SADC Industrialization Week. What's in it for Zimbabwe? Now, to our viewers, please would like to hear from you. We're streaming this live on our social media platforms, so please let us know your views, comments, or thoughts via those platforms. Of course, Facebook page, Zimpapers TV Network. We've also got a YouTube channel at SADC Prime, and of course, all our other sites, X at SADC Prime. We'd like to hear from you. Your views, opinions, and comments would be most appreciated. And of course, the views expressed on Beyond the Dollar are those of our guests and do not reflect the views, of course, of Zimpapers 1980 Limited or those of SADC Prime. Now, it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the studio today Kurai Macheza. He's the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industry CZI President. Who better than to talk to us about industrialization than the President of the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries? Kurai, sir, welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thank you and welcome.
Kurai, it's interesting because I think let's start with exactly what you would term or SADC would term industrialization. I think let's talk there because I think if when we get to that basis, we're easy. Then we can also then build up from that.
Thank you, Andy. I think before I answer directly your question, let me take you back the origins of SADC Industrialization Week. As you know, this year will be the 7th year. The SADC Summit, Heads of State and Government, has been happening. But 7 years ago, in Maseru, in Lesotho, the Heads of State and Heads of Government saw it fit that instead of talking about these other things, the politics, security, and others, they should not leave industry behind.
Exactly.
So this is the genesis of the SADC Industrialization Week. And the focus at that stage were 3 pillars. 1, it was industrialization. 2, it was competitiveness. And 3, it was market integration within the SADC region. So it was felt that we have got to focus as SADC countries on those 3 core pillars to develop our nations and take them forward. So at every SADC summit, starting 7 years ago, this has been happening. And the host country that is hosting the SADC summit, the SADC Business Council takes over. The host country takes over.
Which is you guys in this case.
Currently, the CZI is taking over the chairmanship of SADC Business Council
for the next year.
For next year, as the head of state is also taking over the chairmanship of SADC.
Well, well, it's a feather in our cap, of course, as well as allows us to hopefully influence the drive towards industrialization. Right then, let's now focus on the question. What does industrialization mean in the SADC conversation context?
In terms of industrialization, it talks about how the economies are going to develop. Obviously, it covers all sectors, from infrastructure, from manufacturing, from agriculture. It covers all the sectors. But the most important thing is, how does that enable the economies of SADC to grow?
This is it, because if you look at there's key objectives set out in the Regional Industrialization Strategy and Roadmap 2025 to 2063,
yes,
will incorporate sectors, synergies among governments. So let's look at that strategic roadmap, because it may sound simple, but it can be very complicated. Why? Well, because 16 countries have 16 may have industrial different needs, right? Zimbabwe could be different from Zambia, could be different from Malawi, from Botswana, and so forth. So that roadmap is critical to encompass everybody. That's number one. So how do you see the strategic roadmap aiding economies and industry? Bearing in mind that one of the complaints was that you've been there 7 years, but there hasn't been a lot of movement to put industrialization in place.
Yes, certainly we have not moved significantly, but small steps have happened. When you look, one, I can talk of the integration on electricity. There are interconnectors already between South Africa and Zimbabwe and Botswana. We are connected, Zambia, Namibia. There is an interconnector that is coming through from Angola side, also a regional interconnector from the Tanzanian side. So that integration on electricity, so that we don't have stranded assets in those pockets. When there is electricity in those, as you know, electricity is a key driver of industrialization. So that is a start. Tomorrow, as you know, the heads of state of Botswana, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe are going to sign an agreement about a port in Maputo. Again, and linking to that, the rail itself.
Lines, yeah.
Exactly. So that, again, it brings in infrastructure, transport infrastructure, which enables industrialization week. I can talk also of agro-industries. There is the Zamzim Agro-Industrial Park that has been talked about.
But is that the one on the border between Zimbabwe and Zambia?
Yes, that's correct. Again,
Green Belt, I think they call it.
That's correct. Again, that is industrialization on the agro side. So there are so many initiatives that are happening. Yes, we are still a long way, but we are moving towards that direction.
There is one area, before I move on, there is one area which interests me, is that some of the countries in SADC, as much as we're SADC, we actually don't do a lot of business with each other. We don't know each other as much as we normally would. Like Zambia we know, Botswana we know, South Africa we know, maybe Mozambique we know, but other countries, maybe trade isn't as high as it is with the other ones. And they themselves also may not have traded with us. So even that level of understanding of the economies is critical. And I think this business to business helps with that, because it is business that does business. It isn't government. Yeah. So it's up to you. You need to show business what the environment is here, and your business is what the environment is there. Is that correct? That communication and knowledge is critical for trade.
It is very critical. We can industrialize, but if we don't trade between each other, it's also of no use. So trade is quite critical. You are aware that African Continental Free Trade Area, we have signed Zimbabwe onto it, and it's already in motion, and there are lines, tariff lines that are going to be harmonized over a period of time. Already we are in the phasing in program. About 95% of the tariff lines are going to be harmonized. What we left is a few that will
the essentials, if I can call them that.
Yeah.
Now, you're targeting 300 participants and 150 companies exhibiting. I understand that is the plan. Are you looking at any specific sectors? Are you going to be focusing during that week on any specific sectors, or is it just general exhibitors? What is your plan?
Obviously, we were looking at the private sector playing a significant role in this exhibition. And the small entrepreneurs, because these are the future businesses of tomorrow. So we want them to come in and showcase their products. And obviously, they've got to scale, and they must look for opportunities. They can only have these opportunities if they are exposed to the market opportunities that exist within Zimbabwe and also beyond Zimbabwe.
Do you have any numbers? Do you have any numbers of any foreign companies exhibiting? Have you had any confirmations of the companies that will be there at the industrialization?
We have had quite interesting response. Quite a number of companies. I will not be able to mention country by country, but as far as Mauritius, we have had confirmation.
So there will be 16 nations represented there by their companies.
That's correct.
And what about just me, Andy Hodges, that's interested in looking to see what products are there, what companies are exhibiting? I mean, this is not a paid thing. Can I just pitch up and have a look at some of the exhibit? What is it? What is your plan for the general public?
Everybody who is able to come to Harare International Conference is welcome. They can come and see what will be on display there. It will be interesting. Or also just to learn ideas, to pick ideas. You might not be in business, or you might see other things being done differently. It's an opportunity to come and interact with the others.
So it is free. SADC Industrialization Week. It starts on the 28th of August to the 28th of August to the 1st.
To the 2nd.
Sorry, 28th of July to the 2nd of August.
Yes.
So it is free. HICC, of course, there will be exhibitors there talking about SADC Industrialization. Now, it's time for us to take a short breather. We're going to continue our conversation, or my conversation, with the CZI President, Karai Macheza. We're talking about SADC Industrialization Week. What's in it for Zimbabwe? Lots to chat about. Don't go away. Beyond the Dollar. We'll be right back.
In a land where traditions run deep, where the soil holds the secrets of generations, and where dreams are sown alongside seeds, a new generation emerges. Welcome to Young Seeds. Get ready to embark on a journey like no other as we shine a spotlight on the dynamic and inspiring young farmers in the heartland of Zimbabwe.
I want to do it because plants will die, plants will get infected by diseases, I tried to do mixed farming. That is also putting tomatoes. I have half a hectare of tomatoes.
Every 40 days, it has to be giving birth.
Produce a good quality fruit size. Calves are kept in different pens, basically so that they don't spread diseases to each other.
My name is Zimbabwe. I'm a rabbit farmer.
These young farmers are revolutionizing traditional practices, embracing technology, and finding sustainable solutions that will shape the future of agriculture. So, let's get our hands dirty.
Welcome back. You're watching Beyond the Dollar. I'm Andy Hodges, and this is Etienne Prime. Our topic today, SADC Industrialisation Week. What's in it for Zimbabwe? I have with me in studio the president of the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries, Kurai Macheza. Kurai, before the breather, we were talking about one issue that you raised, which I'd like to get back to, is the importance of SMEs. Because it's a fact that SMEs and MSMEs run economies. It doesn't matter what economy you're looking at. It could be the UK, the US, Europe economies. They're run by SMEs, with some large corporates, of course, being in that role. And they played a major role, of course, in Zimbabwe's economy. In fact, ZimStats in 2023 said 79% of employment, whether formal or informal, is actually in the SME sector. Speak to us about how CZI sees the importance of SMEs and how you're going to cater for them in this Industrialization Week.
Andy, I must tell you that in terms of our broad membership, we've actually been aggressive in making sure that we bring in small SMEs into our membership. And also, we have got some funding from SIDA, where we are going to be training some of these guys in terms of ideas, how they can scale up their businesses. So it has been a very interesting experience for us. Some have done wonders in terms of where they've started, the product that they produce, and in terms of accessing markets. Some are already exporting to markets beyond Zimbabwe. So it's an area that we say we must keep on focusing. And I would no doubt actually predict that some of those guys in 10 years' time, 15 years' time.
They'll be the big boys.
Yeah, they will be big boys.
I remember coming to your CZI Congress, the last CZI Congress, and I met a lot of your members who were SMEs and MSMEs, and taking advantage, of course, of CZI and its linkages and networking. Now, one of the roles of the Industrialization Week is also to try and identify projects that can be implemented jointly by both public and private sector within the SADC member states. Have you started that process of trying to identify it? Because obviously you can't really wait until that week. Is there a process where you can identify projects that each country would like to do and then understand how you can synchronize them or harmonize them or how they can be implemented?
Obviously, as I said, there is the SADC Business Council. So we talk to our counterparts in the neighboring country. It could be Botswana, it could be in DRC, anyway. They actually coordinate the activities there, but then we share that information. What are the areas of commonality? What are the areas that we can collaborate? What are the areas that we can work together?
And then, so how does it work then? So at the end of the Industrialization Week, do you come up with some form of agreed document from all of the private sector of all the member states of the way forward and how you're going to implement so it can feed into the SADC Heads of State Summit?
Obviously, the SADC Industrialization Week precedes the heads of state, but it feeds into that. Obviously, as the head of state debate the issues,
they'll get a report from.
They'll get a
report from your secretariat.
That's correct.
Okay, then go forward. Yeah. Now, this is interesting because I read this. The SADC Protocol on Trade envisages the establishment of a free trading area in the SADC region by, well, it was by 2008. Of course, that obviously is past, but it's expected to become a reality and its really objectives is to further liberalize inter-regional trade in goods and services and to ensure efficient production among those. One area, of course, of criticism is being that SADC has not really focused on or working on regional value chains, because the argument goes like this: with the African Continental Free Trade Area coming upon us, either as Zimbabwe you stand on your own, or we make a little component, Zambia makes one and it's put together in Angola. So instead of competing for the same business, the same investors, the same markets, we can have regional value chains to leverage our expertise to create one single product. Do you find that we're lacking in that as SADC, or in terms of Southern Africa, we're not really working or focusing on those chains?
Well, you might not have noticed, but as I said earlier, efforts are being made, maybe not at the pace that we as citizens would have wanted it to, but the one that I can specifically mention is the Zamzim agro-industrialization park. So that is happening. We've had delegations going to learn from the Ethiopian experiences and so on. So yes, in small steps we are moving, but I agree maybe the pace is not at the rate at which we want.
Now, you obviously have you'll take over the chairmanship of the committee, if I can call it that, for 1 year, but you're also representing Zimbabwe. What are Zimbabwe's industrialization requirements?
Obviously, this touches in a lot of areas, but the agro-processing is one critical. The country has identified some of the key value chains. The cotton to clothing is one area, the pharmaceuticals another area, the leather industry is another area, and also the fertilizer industry.
And I also think light manufacturing could also be a good opportunity.
That's
those
correct.
Smaller products that people sell.
That's correct.
We are clear what we want to achieve.
We are very clear as a country of where we want to go.
But obviously there'll be a mix of funding requirements, as well as PPPs, as well as business to business, as well as business to government. I mean, this can become quite complicated. You've got national projects, you've got business projects. There's a lot to wade through, correct?
This is an ecosystem. It must function together.
Exactly.
Yes, there are pockets there, but the end objective is one, to grow our economy and the economies of the region.
How do you assure, and I must say it is a bit of a skewed question, how do you assure that not one country gets more than the others? For example, South Africa gets more than Zimbabwe, or Zimbabwe gets more than Lesotho. I mean, how do we assure that that industrialization plan is equal and fair to all member states?
Well, as a country, there's no way we can assure that. but the issue is, it depends on the speed and pace at which each country will move. Certainly, we've got to move together. But other countries, depending on their peculiar circumstances, may move at a faster pace than the other.
Got you.
But as we meet every year, the focus is, what are the challenges other people are facing? Why are we not moving as fast as we should in certain areas? And we encourage each other and we assist each other.
Well, that takes me back to what happened in the sixth meeting then, because obviously you've got to review what you agreed in the sixth SADC Industrialization Week to then obviously assess what did we do before moving into the seventh. So have you obviously looked at the sixth conference report or the feedback from that last one last year? Do you see things that are challenges that you need to overcome, that you need to discuss at this next one, so that these things can be out of the way once and for all?
Certainly challenges are there, but we sit down and we talk about them. And as we go into the next chapter, we say, this is what we said we were going to achieve. Did we achieve? How far did we go? And what do we need to correct those issues going forward?
So that's the initial discussion. Then, because at the end of the day, if you can get rid of those bottlenecks, it should help you implement in the future.
That's correct.
Now, one thing that I know we have been trying to do, and we have done, is establish numerous special economic zones. The idea, of course, there is to try and attract businesses or investment in those with tax breaks and all sorts of other concessions, regulatory procedures streamlined, and, of course, infrastructure. But it also appears as if those, even though we still have special economic zones, we haven't really probably pitched them at the right level to get business to come and invest in there. Do you see, from your perspective, but tying it into the industrialization week, that is a good selling point for Zimbabwe in terms of trying to attract investment into those special economic zones? Like, for example, I know they want to set up one in Victoria Falls, for example. There's one right here outside Harare. What is your view about those SCZs?
Certainly, Zimbabwe, we might not have moved, but there is traction in a small way. If you look at Ethiopia has done well in terms of those economic zones. And we have sent people to learn from the Ethiopian experience. And here in Zimbabwe, as industrialists, there are certain, obviously, incentives that would want to be reviewed and improved. But this is a work in progress. And our government in Zimbabwe is listening to some of the concerns that are coming from industry. And I think across the region, across the SADC region, they are also duplicated. They are also pushing in their own other way how they can be enabled.
I think you've made a very good point there. I mean, there's no point 16 nations all doing the same thing. I mean, we're just wasting money and wasting manpower. Yeah. So if we can coordinate and put in place an effective strategy, then industrialization within SADC becomes reachable.
I think we are on the right path as a region.
So you think that you'll be able to pitch the SEZs to other SADC countries, maybe attract investment or attract interest in coming to invest in those SEZs?
Well, not exactly pitch, because this is not a new phenomenon. They are pretty aware of these economic zones, and they are doing it in their own way. But certainly we need to link together what are the common areas, which are the value chains that we must focus on, so that as you produce in those economic zones here in Zimbabwe, you need to take that product out. As you know, Mauritius has actually attracted quite a lot of investments. It's actually saying, as long as you can say this product, a certain percentage was manufactured in Mauritius, you may just assemble it in Mauritius. There are quite incentives to do that, and they are attracting quite a lot of investment in that area.
But at the same time, you're also aware, and I know you've spoken about this before, that we shouldn't also be competing on those incentives with each other, because all we're doing is slitting our own throats, and the investor wins. So us in Rwanda trying to reduce our royalties, us in Zambia we need to work as one to attract investment and benefit from it, rather than individual countries trying to seek the investment. Your views on that?
I agree with you, and these are the areas that we must sit down on a round table and talk and see those areas of commonalities, not areas that we should be competing.
Exactly. Now, I'm going to take a quick breather, but before I do, the entire SADC Industrialization Week is strictly run by business. Agreed? I mean, I know the SADC Secretariat may be there, but in essence, its whole thing is business-driven. It isn't really a governmental thing. It's more a private sector-driven initiative, correct?
No, not entirely correct.
Okay, right.
We are working together with the government.
Okay.
Actually, our parent ministry is very active in what is going to happen during that week.
But the other delegates will include government and private sector
so
from
there
each
is
country.
a private sector and the government as
from
well.
each country.
That's correct.
Oh, I see. So you have so I suppose you're right. You have the policy makers and you got the business people, and of course you need them both to make it effective and to make it smooth.
That's correct.
Right, it's time for us to take a quick breather. We're talking SADC Industrialization Week. That runs from the 28th of July to the 2nd of August. It will be held just before the SADC 44th SADC Heads of State Summit in August. And of course, our topic today, SADC Industrialization Week, what's in it for Zimbabwe? I have with me in the studio Kurai Macheza. He's Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries President. Don't go away. Beyond the Dollar, we'll be right back.
We are a special day today here in Harare. It's the inaugural show of the Phoenix podcast.
The story of Africa is really a story about rising from the ashes.
I'm privileged to be sitting in Dubai, and I'm here today in this city of Hoi An in Vietnam. And he's the Amazon #1 seller of a new book called Take Charge. She's one of the most famous celebrity chefs in Vietnam.
You just have to speak it into the universe. When you say something, the universe listens, God listens.
But more importantly, we're talking about having the ability to believe in yourself. Because if we want to make our children, it's not what we do for them that will make them, but it's what we don't do for them that makes them. If you want to be a global player, listen to the future. You can't become the pill without the irritation.
You have to go through that pressure. It's what's going to make you shine.
Those things that I fell down actually helped me appreciate how to get up again. And every time I got up, I was stronger. Because there's nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come.
Welcome back. You're watching Beyond the Dollar. I'm Andy Hodges, and this is ZTN Prime, broadcasting to you from Harare, Zimbabwe. Our topic today is SADC Industrialisation Week. What's in it for Zimbabwe? And I have with me the president of the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries, Kurai Macheza. And interestingly enough, because we are taking over Zimbabwe, the chairmanship of SADC, it also means that Zimbabwe will also be chairing, if I can call it that, the SADC Industrialisation Week for the next year, and of course it moves to the next country in line. Kurai, for the first time, the week will also boast of a forum investment, or like an investment session, where we're looking, you can boost investments in industries within the region. And of course, this is where different players come into it, not just yourself, CZI as business, but you also have ZIDA as well, of course, because if you want to attract investment into the nation, ZIDA obviously has to get involved. Talk to us about the synergies that you're finding between CZI and ZIDA, in particular, or any other stakeholder in that space that can promote and assist your members to industrialize and, of course, boost regional trade.
Certainly, the whole week it's fully packed. The initial one is the investment conference that takes place. But there are an array of speakers. I think over 80 speakers.
80?
Yes. Yeah. So they will be talking on various topics. It could be on SMEs, it could be on green economy, it can be on anything.
Power, renewable energy.
That's correct. So certainly the interventions on investment in industrialization, ZIDA, will be a key participant in this, because we have got to attract investments. It could be from the region into Zimbabwe, but also beyond the region into Zimbabwe. So we as CZI are interested in that investment because it makes our economy grow and our membership grow.
I mean, I think let's not get mistaken here. It's not as if this 7th conference you've just been sitting doing nothing. I mean, CZI has been trading, your members have been doing business in the region and outside the region. Yeah. And you also obviously have very strong networking and linkages in SADC countries. Talk to us about those and how CZI leverages those for its members' benefit.
Yeah, there could be entities, business entities in the neighboring country who want to look for opportunities to invest here or to partner businesses here in Zimbabwe or on a trade relationship. So, for example, BOKIM, which is the Botswana equivalent of CZI, they've got actually identified a number of business entities that are actually coming to this SADC Industrialization Week, and there will be a B2B meetings that are going to be taking place. There will also be visits to factories in and around Harare.
So people can see capacity, see what we can do, see the products we're making.
Exactly.
That's good. That's great. Now, one thing that, I mean, in fact, me and you, I think, have had conversations about this. I recall possibly, 10, 15 years ago, Zimbabwe used to make upwards of 600 new products a year. I think we're now down to like 5 products in 4 years or something silly. In fact, we can even say 0 in terms of innovation. But let's talk innovation, because one thing I think has been very successful is introduction of innovation hubs, particularly universities. And I see that the ideas coming from the youth and some of the bankable products, I mean, you yourself have toured the innovation hubs. You've seen some of the brilliant ideas from our youth. How is innovation feeding in? How are innovation hubs feeding into SADC Industrialization Week? Because the youth are the future, and they're basically, most of us are youth now.
Actually, the point you are highlighting is actually links to the theme of this SADC Industrialization Week, which says promoting innovation to unlock opportunities for sustainable economic growth and development towards an industrialized SADC. So certainly without innovation, we cannot move to that next step. So industrialization is part of, innovation is part of industrialization.
And how about the youth? Are you going to have space for the youth to come? Are you going to have space for the innovation hubs, the representatives of those to come and maybe speak to the people to show them what we're doing in Zimbabwe? What is the plan?
Certainly, it is not only about products. It's those innovation hubs, the technologies, the thinking behind that will also be on display, so that you also show your skills development. The universities will also be there.
They will be there.
Yes.
Oh, excellent. That'll be good. So we can show what's going on. Now, again, Kurai, I mean, unfortunately, me and you, well, not unfortunately, fortunately, me and you have had many conversations. And one of the major issues I would believe that I hope you're going to talk at the SADC Industrialization Week is the regional payment systems, the regional financial systems, because I think that's a big deal. And also the fact that different SADC countries are facing similar but also different problems. It could be exchange rate volatility, it could be high inflation, it could be debt country. A lot of countries are heavily indebted in SADC and so forth. So each of them may have different challenges. What do you, but of course we can't look at individual countries. We could spend the next 20 years trying to figure those out. What do you, however, believe that are some of the regional challenges that are being experienced and that you need to discuss at the Industrialization Week?
So obviously for industrialization to happen, the capital markets must work and must work efficiently. Yes, the local capital markets within Zimbabwe, the regional capital markets must also work and be able to assist, but also international capital markets must be able to see opportunities within this region to say these are the areas where we are going to deploy capital, but they must actually see a return in deploying that capital. So again, there will be sessions to talk about the capital markets themselves. What are the risks that are involved? How do we go around those risks and so on?
Because it doesn't make sense. Here we are importing from Zambia, but having to pay US dollars to a US payment system where a US bank gets the money. They pay Zambia, they get the money again, right? Before it gets to a guy which is 2 hours away by road. Something is wrong with that payment system, and we need to now look at how can SADC and even Africa have an integrated internal payment system that doesn't give all these huge amounts of money to foreign entities.
I think this is work in progress. We've talked about it in various fora, and certainly we can't keep on relying on those international.
No, we need to be African ourselves. Local authorities. Now, again, you remember, you are not as business. Private sector operating in a vacuum. You need the infrastructure, you need local authorities, towns, rural councils, local authorities, urban areas, putting in place the infrastructure, putting in place the enabling environment to attract investment and to make your own businesses operate efficiently. Is there a role for them to play, local authorities, in this investment conference, for them to come talk to the people? Should they be at the conference, should they not?
Certainly they are critical cog in making sure that business can function and function efficiently. Without those key drivers of economic development, we are not going to be able to move. So certainly provision of good roads, adequate water, electricity, street lighting, everything else is very critical.
Because that's the infrastructure for you to do business.
That's correct.
So as simple as that.
Yeah, we thank government for the amount of effort they've put in the road rehabilitation.
The only comment I could make as City Council is it's taken us 3 months to do this. I'm not going to talk about the last 20-something years. But anyway, that's Andy Hodges' comment. Kurai, okay, we're coming, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of the show. But at the end of the week, okay, if I had to sit you down at the end of it and say, what were your objectives and were they achieved with this meeting, and what you wanted to promote going forward, is that what's going to the heads of summit? What would they be? For you to say this was a successful SADC Industrialization Week from our perspective as Zimbabwe, what would you expect to see at the end of it?
Certainly this is a long-time journey, and if as Zimbabwe we can make the BMOs integrate and work together to actually grow their businesses for the benefit of their economy. Certainly it is not going to happen within 1 year of our chairmanship, but the working together will be a stepping stone towards achieving that goal.
Now I have one more question. I think it's a vital question. There was a survey done of business, and the question was about the African Continental Free Trade Area. And the results came out that something like 70% plus of our businesses are scared of the African Continental Free Trade Area. They seem to have a lack of understanding of it, yet funnily enough, as you yourself highlighted, we're way into it, we're already well down the path into it, we're already, tariffs are already being reduced, and in fact we've probably got about 3 or 4 years before everything is reduced tariffs. So it appears as if Zimbabwe is not ready. What is your assessment of businesses' readiness, businesses' understanding of the African Continental Free Trade Area, and do you think that we are positioned enough to take advantage of it as Zimbabwe?
Well, if you look at the study that was done by the World Bank, it said actually Zimbabwe, among other, is one of the other countries that tend to benefit.
Yes, we're the most to benefit from it.
That's correct.
But we're not ready. Well, I don't know. What is your view? Are we ready? Are we not ready? Are the businesses understanding it? Are they scared? What?
Certainly some businesses do understand it, but there are still issues to be addressed. Obviously, I cannot...
no, there's a whole program on its own, isn't it?
There are so many issues. Yeah. The issues
but
of...
you guys are at the forefront, though.
Yeah.
You're at the forefront of trying to speak to industry, to government, trying to speak to different players to try and sort them out for your members?
Exactly. The ease of doing business within Zimbabwe, the issue of infrastructure that we have earlier talked about, electricity. There are so many issues, the regulations themselves, and so on. So those issues, as a country, we need to address them. The currency that we talked about, if we don't sort it out, will we be competitive to be able to defend our market and be able to take our product there? So these are the engagements that we are currently having within, amongst ourselves as a country, to say African Continental Free Trade Area is coming. It's a good thing, but there are certain issues that we need to deal with
But I think
ourselves.
looking at the SADC Industrialization Week, I suppose the key there is 16 countries talking to each other, 16 countries actively working to integrate, to industrialize, to innovate together, to look at regional value chains and so forth. That is the key. That is what this whole conference is about.
Yeah. What I wanted to highlight about African Continental Free Trade Area, the tragedy we have is there are so many things that we do in pockets. We need to harmonize a lot of issues together as a continent. Yeah. If you look at the EU, for example, I think they've done it very well.
They talk as one.
They talk as one. Currently, as Africa, we are not there yet.
Yeah. So that's SADC and the AU working together.
That's correct.
Right then, so you heard that. The SADC Industrialization Week, 23rd of July to the 2nd of August, will be held at the HICC. All are welcome. It's free. You're not paying anything. You'll be able to see exhibitions, exhibitors from different countries all over SADC. You may get ideas. If you're business, you may be able to go there and find and do some networking and get product. And of course, because it's being held in Harare, Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe is taking over the chairmanship. Karaima Cheza, together with the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, will obviously also be chairing that industrialization committee for the next year. I had with me Karaima Cheza, President of the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries, CZI. Karai, as usual, sir, it's been a great pleasure having you on ZTM Prime.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we'll be back. Of course, we're going to be talking to you a lot because we've still got a lot to go through when it comes to SADC industrialization. Now, this, of course, is one of our series. This is a series we'll be looking at the industrialization. Hopefully next week we should be able to get the Minister in to chat about it as well, the Minister of Industry and Commerce. But for then, that's it for me, for Beyond the Dollar. Our theme today, SADC Industrialization Week. What was in it for Zimbabwe? I had Karaima Cheza, President of CZI, in the studio with me. I'm Andy Hodges. Goodbye, and please, you all be safe.